What's up, everyone? And welcome to the Daily News Roundup from the Renewable Energy Smart Pod. I'm your host, Sean McMahon, and today's top story, we're talking about the Grain Belt Express. The $11 billion Grain Belt Express transmission line is essential for energy security in the U.S., and so it's critical that the Trump administration help keep the project on track. That is according to Invenergy Executive Vice President and Chief Commercial Officer Jim Shield, who wrote a letter to Energy Secretary Chris Wright, Bloomberg reports. In the letter, Shield writes that the Grain Belt Express will, quote, strengthen grid reliability and resilience while saving U.S. consumers billions of dollars. The letter from Invenergy comes after Senator Josh Hawley, the Republican from Missouri, said he got a commitment from federal officials to halt the project and rescind a $4.9 billion loan guarantee. Octopus Energy has made news with a plan to spin off its energy management unit, Kraken Technologies. The move could see Kraken valued at an eye-popping $14 billion. And the separation, which could be completed within a year, is expected to accelerate Kraken's growth, particularly within markets where Octopus struggles to compete. You see, Octopus's retail business thrives in deregulated markets like the UK and France. But as Octopus US CEO Nick Chassett says, there are really only a handful of other countries in the world where that opportunity is available. And now for some data center news. Emerald AI has launched with $24.5 million in seed funding, with an eye towards transforming data centers into flexible assets by managing artificial intelligence workloads during periods of peak demand. The startup has already demonstrated its software at an Oracle data center, reducing power consumption by 25% during grid stress without affecting performance. And now here's some news for all you clean energy communicators. Everyone knows that a lack of local support has been known to topple renewables projects around the U.S. But in Ohio, the State Power Siting Board's decision to approve the 120 megawatt Fraser solar site last month indicates that communities don't necessarily have to be all in on renewables projects. Knox County and Clinton Township took a neutral stance on the project, which ended up being all the support the project needed to meet the state's public interest requirement. It's a big win for the project, which was plagued by fierce opposition, and that playbook may also offer hope to other projects facing similar messaging challenges. On the policy front, a growing chorus of clean energy and grid reliability experts is casting doubt over the Trump administration's new grid report, which suggests that propping up aging coal and gas-fired power plants is essential for reliability. Although the experts generally agree that the U.S. is facing surging power demand and that reliability could be an issue, they argue that the Energy Department has presented an incomplete and potentially misleading view that appears to disregard the nation's ability to add new generating capacity. In our next story, while headlines about the U.S. energy transition haven't exactly been upbeat lately, the global outlook isn't all that bad. The U.S. accounts for just 13% of all carbon dioxide emissions, meaning there's room for other countries around the world to make meaningful progress. China and the European Union are continuing to push forward, with China seeing wind and solar capacity surpass coal and gas earlier this year, while the EU got more power from solar than any other energy source during the month of June. And here's a stat for you. Worldwide, $2 is being invested in clean energy and climate solutions for every $1 spent on fossil fuels. On the project front, GE Vernova has agreed to pay Nantucket, Massachusetts, $10.5 million after a blade from the Vineyard Wind 1 project broke and scattered debris during peak tourist season last year. The town plans to create a fund to compensate all the businesses that were affected. Meanwhile, Iberdrola is in the headlines as it has begun the approval process for a 1.32 gigawatt pumped hydro site in Portugal. On the money front, this story shouldn't surprise anybody. HSBC has decided to exit the Net Zero Banking Alliance, which follows a trend set by other major banks such as Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan Chase. The Net Zero Banking Alliance certainly made some splashy headlines a few years ago, but now that the political winds have shifted, the alliance has certainly downshifted its membership and its ambitions. Well, that's our roundup for today. If you want to read more details about these stories and others, click on the link in the show notes to read today's newsletter, or head on over to smartbrief.com and sign up for the Renewable Energy Smart Brief.
If you like this podcast, please share it with your friends and colleagues, and be sure to follow us on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. The Renewable Energy Smart Pod is a production of Smart Brief, a future company.